With free next-day delivery from Staples, you can run your business like a pro. You can guarantee the marketing department that they'll get their supplies tomorrow and guarantee the accounting department that they'll be delivered free. With free next-day delivery, you'll have the ability to move deadlines up and adjust budgets down. Go to staples.com and get the office essentials you need delivered next day for free. Staples. It's pro time. Orders over $49.99. Placed by 5 p.m. Excludes weekends and holidays. Eligible items only.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hey kids, it's me, and it's Thursday, and it's a late Thursday afternoon show, which I know that you're not used to, but it's actually really cool for me because then I get more of my listeners and more of my audience. And today I want more of my listeners and more of my audience because two of my most favorite people from New York City are coming on my show today. And I could not be any more tickled pink than I am right now to talk to the both of them. And I get them both, actually, both of them on two separate phones, so we get to flip-flop, we get to ask a lot of questions, very excited. Before I get them on the line, I don't want to forget to mention to everybody that I have another double-decker tomorrow, which means that I'm on the radio at 3:30 with that beautiful, lovely, talented actress Donna Ross at 3:30. And then 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, we have Deborah Unger, another beautiful, lovely author / actor / just one of my inspirations. She's slowly but surely becoming somebody that I admire quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And hopefully, if God blesses me, the Steve Stanulus interview that we had to reschedule will be on Saturday, but don't quote me. I have to double check with him. So without further ado, I'm going to click to see who I have first and who I get second, and then we'll get them both on the line and we'll start talking. Okay, which one do I have? Hello?
Victor. Hi, it's Victor.
It's you. Hi.
How are you, my love?
It's Cindy.
How are you?
Well, I feel like you're right next to me, and I'm really excited because I get you, I get Richard, and I get me, and I get my whole audience, and we're all together. So
well, there
hold
you
on
go.
1 second. I have to grab Richard, which I'm assuming that you're together, but I have to get him on the line. So just 1 second.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Cindy.
Okay, Richard, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Cindy.
Okay. Okay, so we can hear, all three of us can hear one another, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me get comfortable in my little studio here, which I call my kitchen table. So, hi, I'm very excited, and I'm terribly nervous. How are you guys?
Oh,
Good. So we're excited to be on.
Nervous?
Are you nervous? There's no reason to be nervous, actually. I've kind of showcased our show today in three different ways, which means that I'll start with either one of you first, and then we'll talk about the two of you collectively, and then we'll talk about each of your accomplishments separately, so to speak. We'll basically come around full circle at the end. So I guess I want to leave it up to you guys as to which one of you wants to go first.
Oh, gosh. Okay, I'll go first. Victor.
Okay. Victor's going first. Okay, so let's talk about Victor's life. Okay, there's so many components of you I can't even stand it. But we're going to start on the personal side of things because most of the people that are listening to the show don't know about some of your professional things that you do. So on the personal standpoint, let's talk a little bit about you. So I want to start off by one of these quotes that I read about you that you actually said, which is food and tradition translate into love. And I absolutely love that quote. So explain to everybody, first off, the significance to that quote you stated and what that means to you personally.
Sure. I grew up in an Italian-American home, and as I'm sure almost everyone knows, that food is an incredibly important part of our culture. And growing up with one grandmother in the house and the other one around the corner, I was surrounded, and of course my mom, but she worked when we were kids, and the grandmothers kind of tag team watching us, my sister and I. And it was food. It was such a focal point of each day for us, whether it was a lunch when we came home from school or a snack or what they were cooking for dinner, the smells, the attention that went into each meal. And then that just translated into not only every day, but of course the holidays were always such an important part of our family tradition. But the food really was front and center, and I think that's something that stayed with me when I'm cooking for someone or enjoying a meal with someone or a whole group of people. To me, that's one of the most perfect expressions of love, because when you're sitting at a table eating, your guard is down, and because you're relaxed and you're eating, and you're starting to communicate in ways that maybe you wouldn't if you're just, sitting and talking to someone or even over a drink. So that's most probably one of the most important aspects of my life has been food preparation and sharing.
And of course, because you come from an Italian family, I understand that you speak Italian. Is that correct?
See? Yes.
Yes, you can actually
that translates
teach me how to speak
into
Italian.
yes.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much. And I think to myself, one of the things that I thought about that I don't know that you've ever thought about is doing a project, a film project or a writing project that would have those, how they have the subtitles, like an Italian subtitled movie. And I could see you or picture you doing that, and I wonder if you've ever given that any thought.
Well, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I wrote a film called Seven Fishes. Now, let me tell you what Seven Fishes is. Every Christmas Eve in an Italian household, we celebrate what we call the Feast of the Seven Fishes. And that's an Italian tradition where you serve 7 seafood dishes, but it usually turns out to be more because you can't help yourself. And actually, I wrote a blog about the seafood experience and the Seven Fishes experience for Christmas Eve, and someone saw it and called me up, as someone in the film industry, and said, I think it would be a great idea to write a romantic comedy that takes place around that evening. And I took him up on it and wrote it, and that's actually a project that is right now very much alive and being looked at by a few folks. So, but it really is a lovely story that is kind of a compilation of my experiences growing up and things that I saw growing up, and the humor of the Brooklyn Italian family. But one thing was very important with this film was the stereotypes go away. There's no stereotypes in it. There's no mention of mafiosi and all that kind of thing. It's about real people living in a upper middle class Italian neighborhood, and just kind of encountering real situations, but how they handle it through their cultural perspective, and it's very funny.
Nice. I'm very intrigued now. Now I'm really curious about that. Okay. Now we want to flip back over to the personal side of things here, because I know obviously, can you tell me some of the things, because obviously, like you mentioned, you're from an Italian family. So are some of those traditions or heritages or things that you've grown up with a staple in your own home nowadays, meaning do you observe all the same sorts of traditions when you were growing up, and do you do that now?
Absolutely. It's to me, that's one of the most important things about these traditions is to keep them alive. It's hard. It's harder now than it was when I was growing up, Cindy, because life is much more, it's faster now, and we're bombarded with all kinds of media, and I think that lots of young folks have kind of slipped away or walked away from those traditions. I've made a personal effort to keep those traditions alive. And also I have one nephew. There's only one child in our family, and that's my nephew, Christian. He's my sister Santa's son. And we've all made an effort into having him very much involved in these traditions, whether it's going to Mass on Sunday morning, the Sunday meal, as I said, different holidays, whether it's Christmas or Easter, the traditions, the language, the stories, the family stories, the pictures. We actually put a lot of effort into exposing him to that, so that it lives on. And he's, again, I don't have children, but he's like a son to me, and it's important. It's very important to me that tradition lives on.
Certainly. Now, I know you mentioned your sister, and I was just about to get to that bullet point, so let's talk about her a little bit. Meaning, did she and you both take a similar path? Meaning, is she of a creative nature herself? Did she do something in the same business as you? Does she live nearby you? Are you similar? I'm curious about this.
Okay. My sister is 4 years younger than I am, and we have similarities. I mean, she's not in the creative field. She's actually a school teacher. She was actually a marketing major, and then had started a family. And when she went back to the workforce, she was interested in working with special needs children. So actually, that's her thing. She has a tremendously talented sense of humor, though. You know, we laugh a lot. We tell stories. She's a great storyteller, and I wouldn't be surprised if she sat down and wrote something that it wouldn't be fantastic. But to answer your question, no, she does. She's not in the creative field. We do live close enough to each other to see each other a lot, which is close to our parents as well, and we see a lot of each other.
Nice. Very nice. I like to hear that. That's wonderful. Now, since you brought up that point, obviously, I wanted to mention a couple of things, because obviously as a professional individual, sometimes people have limited amounts of education. You are on the opposite side of the spectrum. Oh, my goodness gracious. He is a graduate of, as I understand it, of NYU. You have an MA in linguistics, which I thought, well, that explains a whole lot, because I've met you in person, so I understand that. Question for you, because, of course, both of us are authors, and I often ask this question to fellow authors, which is, nowadays, with the way that the publishing industry has changed and how we have so many different forms nowadays, like the ebook formats and all of these other ways to self-publish and such, would you still tell the average student, you know what, you need to go ahead and finish your 4 years of high school, finish your 4 years of college, do an internship in a newspaper per se, or would you be more willing at this point to be more liberal and say, you know what, life experience with the high school education is sufficient to go and pursue your dream nonetheless?
Well, you know, that's a really interesting question. I guess I'm a little bit more of a traditionalist in that I feel that I don't think it's necessary for someone to go to college to be successful. I think that you know, that's something that, especially in my generation, I think, you know, we didn't go to college. We want you to go to college because that's the only way you're going to be successful, especially if you have a creative talent. I don't think it's necessary, but I still would. I would recommend to any young person that they at least if they're not that interested in it, at least do a 2-year college. Get some kind of a backing. It only helps to make you a more well-rounded person. You know, what I found is that when I went to college, I mean, I was actually pre-law because, you know, I thought that you had to be a lawyer, a doctor, or an accountant, you know, to make money. And found myself in college in that those things were really not for me. And the creative, you know, the writing and the linguistics was much more, I was much more in tune with that. But, you know, I think that you need to have that kind of solid background. That would be my recommendation to any young person, you know, or, you know, listen, if you're theater arts or whatever it is, but, you know, go to college, do it in college, you know, get that degree.
Now, secondary question to that, because, of course, obviously you live in New York City, and New York City is just ripe and rich with theater and arts and independent film, et cetera. So would you be more inclined to say as a New Yorker that, honestly, you have game point advantage, so to speak, meaning would you encourage individuals, if they want to get a higher threshold of success, to get to L.A., to get to New York City, to go to some of these places that are all about the theater and the arts?
Yes, I really would. I think that, and again, nothing is 100% in this life. You know, you don't. It's not 100% that you need to be in New York or L.A. The great thing about being in New York or L.A. is the networking advantages. It's very difficult to network with these folks in the industry if you're not in either one of these cities. I think, you know, eventually you'll find yourself traveling to do that networking. Living in New York City, for me, you know, has been a tremendous advantage in the film and TV arena because, again, so many folks are here, or if they're not, they're bi-coastal, and I get to network with them and see them at film fest. You know, well, the film festivals, lots of people do fly in, but not only film festivals, just events. You know, it's really to get your face out there and get your name out there. You know, it's competitive, and it is it does give you a slight advantage. Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing I forgot, actually, you know what? I did research this, and I couldn't find it, or am I imagining it? But have you lived in New York your whole life? Because I want to say that you didn't, but I could be inaccurate on this one.
No, actually, yes. I mean, I lived in New Jersey, but I consider that New York, because we have
right.
the tri-state area here. I lived in New Jersey in the suburbs. My mom used to say he lives in the mountains, but really it was the suburbs for 11 years. Certainly there were some hills there, but not exactly mountains. But yeah, I mean, but I always worked in New York. I commuted. So yeah, I'm a New York boy.
Okay, there we go. That's what I thought. Okay, now I have a couple fun facts here before we switch over to Richard and we get to know him on a personal level. We share some commonalities. Obviously, of course, we have a bunch of mutual friends, but I also didn't realize until I started researching you that you know my dear friend Matthew Schultz. So I'm curious to ask how you know him, or have you met him, or are you just Facebook friends? I like to know if people know people.
No, just Facebook. Actually, just Facebook friends. We've never met, but just, Facebook.
I gotcha.
I can't say that I know him. I really can't say that I know him.
That's okay. This is all part of the journalist's job to kind of dig in and research and take a look.
Oh, sure.
I also noticed you and I also met the same Real Housewife, because I actually met and had dinner with I can't believe I just forgot her first name, Kathy Wakili. I met Kathy and Richard a long time ago. Yes.
Sure.
So I'm curious to get your impressions of her, because I saw that you went to her book signing. I saw the event and such, and so I'm like, well, tell everybody who doesn't get a chance like us to meet the Real Housewives what an experience that was like, and what kind of person she is.
Oh, gosh. Kathy is a wonderful person. She really is. She is so warm and so real. This is a real, what you see is what you get on and off the camera. She and I immediately hit it off again, because we share a lot of the same values. Again, that love of food, and that's actually how we met. We actually did some branding work for her in her food line, and the Italian background is a given, but it's really and her husband is not Italian. Actually, she's Italian. Her husband is Lebanese. But she and I immediately hit it off because of that tradition that we shared, and she's just one of the sweetest people you'd ever want to meet. She really is.
Right. I would agree 150%. I definitely do.
Yeah.
So my last personal question for you, it's two, because I can do that, because I'm the host. I can actually ask two. First
That's
of all,
okay. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I know, right? No kidding. We'll ask about me first, and then we'll ask about your partner second. So I always like to hear, and let me just tell you folks the story, because those that are listening in may or may not know this, but I had an opportunity to meet Victor and Richard both at the same time, conveniently, because we were all attending a movie premiere. And do you remember which movie premiere that was?
Oh, do I remember? Yes.
I'm asking,
it was
do you remember?
Networker. Oh, no,
yes, it was.
Oh, no, it was not our
I saw
network
you
premiere.
It was Kelsey's premiere, but I saw you at the Networker. Yes, that's right. Kelsey's premiere. Kelsey O'Brien. Yes, and of Enchantments, by the way, folks. That's my independent film that I keep talking about. Yes, Enchantments. And so I actually watched you at the Networker at the Q&A, but we never formally met. And then, of course, I went to the after party for Enchantments. And let me just tell you what I saw. I walked in, and I was mingling around the room, and here I am, little Wisconsin girl, little kind of fish out of water, haven't been to a whole lot of these parties. And then there's this dashing gentleman that walks up, a.k.a. Victor, walks up, or I walked up to him, or I don't know how we all were kind of rubbing elbows together, and I started talking. And you know how it is in the first 10 minutes that you start talking to someone, you just know to yourself, I'm probably going to know this person for life, because you just have this connection where you speak to each other and you feel yourself blushing on the inside, not because the man's hitting on you, but rather because he's just so enchanting and delightful and so captivating. And that was my very first impression. And then here's Richard standing next to him. And I have to tell you, Richard's a little intimidating, folks. I'm a little nervous of him. I'm telling you, Victor's a cakewalk. I'm like so afraid to talk to Richard. Even Richard has a very commanding presence. It's funny because when you see the two of you together, these are my impressions. So here's Richard standing there, and he flashes this pretty little smile, and he starts talking, and he's just so very collected, and they just compliment each other so very nicely. And I walked away from that, and I thought, oh, my gosh, I'm so excited. And then I came home, and Victor and I started yip-yapping, and here we are. And I'm so delighted. So here's the question after that nice little intro to how we met. So I always have wanted to ask a guest when they come on my show their impressions of me. and you're the first person I've actually asked to do that. So I'm curious. Tell everybody your impressions of Cindy, because I never get to ask anybody that. I always tell everybody else what I think of them. So here's your 30 seconds to tell the world what you think of me.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I absolutely love you, but my first impressions of you were that you were an extremely warm, beautiful person, and it just shone through. And I mean, besides, and I've said this to you, and I'll say it on air. You're a beautiful woman physically, but you're just as equally, if not more, beautiful inside. And I also saw the talent. I saw the talent.
Aw, you're too sweet. Okay, there's no crying on the show, damn it. I shouldn't have asked that question. I know, and I'll probably end up crying in 30 seconds. Thank you for that. That's very sweet. He's being way too kind. Now, so this is the actual last personal question, and then we'll switch over to Richard, talk about his personal life. Tell me, if I were to ask you what you find most unique about your partner, what would you tell me?
What's most unique about Richard? What's most unique about Richard, I think, is the tremendous, beautiful physical appearance of him, and the sweetness that's inside. I guess that kind of threw me, that question. I guess what I'm trying to say is that lots of handsome people are often conceited, and he's not. And that's one of the first things. My first impressions of him were that he's a very handsome man, but his humility and sweetness is so apparent when you meet him, and that's very unique, especially in his profession.
That was very sweet. Oh, no kidding, right? Musician. We'll get started on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to give Victor a break, and we're going to talk to Richard. Right? Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that could be a show. That could literally be a show in and of itself. So now we're going to talk to Richard. So, Victor, you must listen in. I'm very nervous because now I have to talk to Richard, and I'm hoping he doesn't bite my head off. Okay, Richard, you're up. It's your turn.
Why are you nervous? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can see your face all the way from here, and I can feel it. I'm like, oh, my God, Intimidation Central. I can do this. Okay, we're going to start off we're going to kind of do the similar thing that I did with Victor. First of all, you're much harder to research. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, but you're very personal, and you keep things to the cuff. And I've literally crawled under almost every crevice I can find to find out about you, and it's very challenging, actually. So I'm going to have to literally...
You had to get the CIA to...
Well, exactly. I literally had to beg for favors. Like, people, can you tell me something about this guy? Because it's like everything is under wraps. So I should have just called Victor and said, give me the scoop. I want to start off with one of your quotes, and I actually saw that you had said this not so long ago, and I thought it was a neat quote I would share with everyone. Richard said this at one time, which is, music and dance is good for the soul. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. Obviously, you are a musician, and I just like the whole symmetry of that entire statement. So tell me why this is so important to you, and tell me at what particular age music and dance and just being a performer became something of a priority to you.
Well, it's always been a priority for me. All of my life, basically, I've been singing since I was 6 years old, and I was always surrounded by music. My mother used to play, the Spanish music and also the English music, and the radio was constantly on, and so I picked up a lot of different sounds. And I grew up on the Upper East Side, and so there was lots of rhythms and lots of exposure to different kinds of sounds, and so that was that. And my uncle actually was a professional singer, and he was a recording artist in the 60s. His name was King Nando, and so there was a lot of exposure to that as well. My father was a singer, so I was surrounded by it. So basically, I really didn't have a choice but to pursue this, because it's in my bones, basically. So
certainly.
So I've always been a firm believer of people following their bliss, and my bliss happens to be music, and so a lot of parents kind of go a little crazy when I just say, well, let them pursue their dreams, let them pursue their art, pursue their bliss, And a lot of parents get nervous because it's like, how are they going to make any money? They're going to starve. And I firmly believe that if you follow your bliss, if you follow your heart, that you will be able to make money and the riches will come with that. So I firmly believe that. So that music and dance does feed the soul, and and any kind of physical expression that you can express is really, really, really great. So
definitely, I would agree with that. Now, you kind of hit it on the head there, obviously, with growing up and talking about listening to both types of music and such. So I'm curious to ask you, Richard, as a person, not necessarily as a musician, do you have a particular preference, meaning that do you prefer some of the Spanish music as opposed to American music? Tell us a little bit about when you started to formulate how and what you wanted to sing.
Well, initially, I mean, my parents were Spanish speaking. I mean, they also spoke English, but I was always exposed to the dual languages, English and Spanish, and so I had I gravitated towards both the English and the Spanish, but just in terms of the music and the beauty of it, I think I really love the Spanish stuff. But I'm also very at home with the pop and the R&B, so it's that's kind of part of my generation. But I guess you could say I'm kind of a chameleon in a way, because I also do love the traditional. I love the traditional jazz. I love the Great American Songbook, so that speaks to me as well. So it's kind of I'm kind of a hybrid of those kinds of music, I think. So it's kind of hard to choose. It's just basically what I see and what kind of moves me, and so I'm in a position now where I can get to choose what I want to sing, as opposed to being told you have to sing this and you have to sing that. So, but
right.
But when I do the Sinatra stuff, I do feel like I'm home in a way, because it's it feels like it's like another place, another time. You know what I mean? It just feels like I'm not of this era, but sort of like a throwback. But then I'm also of this generation and love this era as well. So it's kind of a mix there. So.
Oh no, I understand completely. Actually, so it begs to ask the question. So I'm like, here we are, moving along in progression. Some people are obviously formally trained and have years of education as it relates to music. Some people are self-taught. Some people have been instructed by some of the best, or maybe one particular instructor. Tell us a little bit about what kind of formalized training you've had relative to singing and where you received it from.
Well, I've done a lot of training privately. Believe it or not, my experience has been more with the acting. So, but I also believe, you have to act in songs. So it kind of all mixes in with it. So basically, the acting informs the singing, and the singing informs the acting. So, so my formal training has been, acting, but I've worked privately a lot, and with different voice teachers, and so I'm constantly on a learning path with that. So, and I firmly believe that in order to evolve as an artist, in order to grow as an artist, you should work on your craft, and that's what I've been doing for many, many years now. So. Okay.
And because you were such a master of what you do, of course, one of the things I got to thinking about today is have you ever considered, or perhaps I don't know about it, have you ever been an educational force? Have you ever taught to students or tutored individuals or done anything educational relative to music?
No, I haven't. I mean, that's something that's been mentioned to me, and it's something that maybe I may want to do in the future. But I also, my position in a way is I feel that if you're going to perform, there might be a conflict in teaching because you have to be really committed to your students and so on. So so I'm not ready to let go of the teaching aspect of it just yet. So the performance aspect of it just yet. So
right. Sure. No, I understand.
So I kind of believe that you can't really give 100% as a teacher if you're still performing. So it's kind of some people may argue with me about that, but I've seen it, many times where people are conflicted sometimes when they're teaching and then they're also, performing at the same time. So
sure.
It takes a great amount of commitment, I think, to teach. So I may change my mind tomorrow, but right now that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Go teach. Okay, I understand completely. Now, you have more siblings than Victor does. As I understand it, you have 2 siblings, correct?
Yes.
Okay, brother and sister. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are they... I was just going to ask if it would be like a three-man trio, for lack of a better word, putting you in a room together, or are they not musically inclined?
My sister is definitely musically inclined.
Okay.
She studied opera undergrad, and she also teaches as well, and so she's teaching music now. So she's a mom as well, so that's taking up a lot of her time as well. But yes, she does have the creative gene.
Okay.
My brother does not, but I'm sure he's been exposed to some of it, but he's not. His creativity in terms of song or whatever is not really in the forefront for him. So.
Gotcha. I understand. Now, you posed and brought up an interesting topic earlier when you had said how parents sometimes look at you like, oh, why is he telling my children they should go and pursue this and this and this? So I'm curious to ask you, as it relates to your own family, did your parents at one point in time come to you and say, now, Richard, you're going to have a 9-to-5 job, and it's going to have to pay well, and you're going to have to make sure you do this and this? Or were they more of your cavalier and saying basically, you have a dream, you have a passion, go with it?
Well, I'll say somewhere in the middle. In other words, they never really bugged me, and they never really counseled me. So it was like I was sort of like left to my own devices and just kind of was able to make those kinds of choices. So in a way, it felt like, sometimes it felt like I needed the support, but in a way, it maybe ultimately was the best thing that happened because I didn't have any obstacles. It's just basically this is what I wanted to do, and so they allowed me to do it. And whether they got it or they didn't get it, or whether they were fearful, they never really expressed it to me. But kind of guessed that maybe they were a little fearful, but they never really bugged me about it. So. That's a very
no, I understand.
Simple.
I get it. No, I do.
I didn't have all the drama, but I guess maybe because they were intimidated by me as well, maybe. Who knows?
See, I'm telling you, you start to scare people. I know you're not listening to me, but it's true. Richard has to start looking friendly. He's friendlier. Let's put it that way. He's got a beautiful face. People, don't let him kid you. I mean, Richard really is a beautiful man. I'm not going to lie about that. Absolutely. And get this, folks, during my research, and I had a really tough job because I get to peruse around and I get to research and dig up all sorts of dirt. And here I am cruising along on Richard's Facebook page. And get this, people, at one time, don't tell the world, he used to be in print modeling. Isn't that right, Richard?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Tell the folks about that one.
It was a very short stint, but, because I was not comfortable doing it, it was fun. It was fun. I did quite a few the print model stuff, but not enough to get me, worldwide recognition, but
sure,
it was fun.
I imagine. How old were you when you were doing that? You must have been young, I gather, much younger.
Yeah, I was in my 20s, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
You know,
and now he's like
which was
35
only 10 years, which was
so.
only 10 years ago. So
exactly. See, I told you he's only like 35 right now. People, can you imagine that? That's awesome. Okay, now on the bit of personal side of things, so I have a couple personal questions. Is then obviously we all have a day job. And we all have passions and things that we love. But I noticed that some of the things you and I, even though he intimidates the hell out of me, we have some commonalities in some of the things that we like, which I just found out by researching you, such as he is a fan of. First of all, I could talk for days of the types of things that he's a fan of musically, but I just picked out the ones that I happen to like, which is we're both mutual fans of Queen, Duran Duran, Matchbox 20, which I was just listening to before our interview started. And interestingly enough, you had Taylor Dayne on your list, and how funny, because I met her 3 years ago or something, so I'm like, how funny is that? He is also a fan of both The Voice and OMG, you are a fan of The Good Wife. You never told me that. I love you more now. Oh, my God. I love The Good Wife. I love the casting. I love the writing. I missed last season. I'm mad, so don't tell me. But, I mean, I just absolutely love the show.
Oh, my
it's
God.
amazing.
You have to
don't tell me. Don't do it.
Season. Yes. There were so many surprises.
Yes. All I saw was on your Facebook page, like, was anybody else shocked? And I'm like, what? I'm like, he can't throw that out there and then leave it. So I'll like Netflix it or like do something. But people would have to stop asking me to do shows and go to New York City.
Spoilers and stuff. So.
Okay, good. Okay, good. We'll leave that one. That's okay. I will have to find some time for that because, like I said, it is hands down one of my favorite shows. But since I did notice that whole little thing about The Voice, I ask pretty much every musician that comes on the show this because obviously, of course, you've indicated that I'm assuming you watch the show and you're a fan of it. So here's what I want to know as a musician. Every musician has a different take on this, so let me ask you this. We live in the day and age, of course, where we have things like The Voice and American Idol, et cetera. And it just seems to me, and I'm a non-musician, and this is what you do. It seems to me as though this kind of paves the way, in essence, for young individuals or even not so young, but just young or youthful in the industry, so to speak, to get their name out there, to get their face out there, to get recognized so much faster than somebody back in the day where you had to really work up. So I wonder, my question to you is, do you advocate platforms like this existing, or do you think it's somewhat of an unfair advantage to those such as yourself who have been working a long time to get where you are?
Well, I tell you, but in terms of American Idol, I was not a fan initially because I thought that it was a way for people to manipulate talent and to manipulate people who were just starting, in a way to break their spirit and so on. And so I felt that the natural evolution of their talent was being stunted by maybe some harsh criticism or people not really seeing or the judges not really having the background or the education, to observe, the unique talent that's within each of us. And so I was a little leery about it. And then years later, I just kind of came around and said, okay, well, this is good because I can see where the opportunities are there for these young talents, but I also know that sometimes it's a little too fast. It's a little too much heaped upon these talented kids. These natural talents that I feel that that somehow the education is missing. I feel somehow that the nose to the grindstone, the really just basically technique and all the other things that kind of make you the performer that you can be in totality, I think is missing, because what happens is that you get caught into that vicious circle of people wanting to just use you and have you produce right away, as opposed to just maybe taking it a little slower, but getting the technique, getting, the education. And so, like a lot of these kids probably won't be able to sing a cappella. There's like a lot of really basic things. A lot of kids may not be able to project on the, I was trained to project on the stage. I was trained to, not work with a mic. And so these are things that I think are handicapping these young kids now. So, in a way, it's kind of a catch-22, but it's the way the world is now, and so you have to kind of, work with what's being offered now. So, but I still am in favor of, just really getting the basics down, and I think a lot of these kids don't have that. So,
right. Oh, I understand completely. I'm not a fan of either or, to tell you the truth. Well, wait, I retract that. Anything that has Adam Levine, yeah, I just stare. I could turn it on and just stare because he's hot. Oh, sorry, I didn't say that. But outside of that factor, it's like, no, I think you have to earn what you get, and you have to work very hard at it, and there's some pluses and minuses and all that good stuff. So I concur with your opinion.
You get to see that you also get to weed out, there's some natural talent, but also think that you tend to break people's spirits because there is a connection to wanting to express yourself or wanting to be creative but not really being ready, and so that'll send you into a tailspin, and so I'm concerned about people, the kids getting that kind of treatment. So
sure. No, I understand completely. I do. So now I'll ask you the same two questions that I asked Richard, and then we will go from there, which is, first of all, I'm afraid to ask this question because you scare me, but I was just wondering what your impressions of Cindy were. Oh, God, I'm sitting down, so please be kind. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I thought you were sexy as all get out with that show. What is that? What do you call those? What do you call that? What you had on? Strapless.
Oh, wait.
With the strapless.
Yeah, the strapless dress. Yes, I had the green strapless dress. I remember. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the green strapless dress, and I thought that you were very, let's just say, very, very attractive and very deep. I could sense that you were very deep kind of person, and kind of So that was my sense about you, and that that you did have some. You did have some worries and concerns, but also that you are a thoughtful person and a caring person, and so you carry a lot of things on your shoulder, and I did see that. So I could see your mind constantly working. So
yes. It definitely is, without a doubt. Wow, I'm starting to get less scared of you. This is a plus. Okay, good. So as long as I talk about me, he's nicer. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you the flip question, which I asked Victor, which is, of course, tell me what is unique about your partner?
Well, Victor is like, how can I say it? Victor is the sweetest person I've ever met in my life, and he's the most honest, loving, and giving person that I've ever met. He is true blue, as they say, and it's just really just the most honorable, decent person I've ever had the pleasure of meeting and sharing my life with. So that's really
that was wonderful.
You can trust him implicitly, is what I can say. He's the most honorable person you could ever meet. So
correct.
So that's,
I agree 180%. Yay. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's,
now I'm going
and that's really hard to come by.
Oh, no, definitely, without a doubt whatsoever. I'm going to attempt to have you both not talk at the same time, but the next three questions are geared towards both of you. So either one of you can answer at this point in time, either Victor or you, whichever. And they're questions about, well, you guys know me well enough to know, and anybody who listens to my show is obviously versed enough to know that we're all about the romance factor on this show. I know it sucks, but it's true. It's probably because I'm a loser with no love life. Well, kind of love life. I don't even know what my love life is. We'll get into that later. Anyway, we're going to talk about, I want to know, and I would like you to let the audience know three things. First of all, tell the story of how you met one another. Second of all, tell me of the joys and the turbulence that's involved, because obviously when you have two entertainers that live in a household, sometimes that can be nothing short of a pain in the butt. So talk to us a little bit about that. And then third of all, do you envision or have you ever done a project together in a working capacity, not in a professional capacity, not a personal one? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll start with how we met. I always like to tell the story.
Okay.
We met at a party, and neither one of us was really supposed to be there. I was
believe it or not, Cindy.
Okay.
I was actually single for a year and a half. I had come out of an 11-year relationship, and I wasn't what you would call a real swinger. Gay men have the reputation of being really, out there and having sex all over the place, and I was like the opposite. So a friend of mine said, he said, we don't have any fun. He said, it's going to be my birthday in January. He said, and the time I was living in Brooklyn, he said, why don't we go to the city, we'll get a room, and we'll go to the Roxy. And I said, oh, my God, the Roxy, that's the place where all the guys take their shirts off and dance. And he said, yeah, let's do it. He says, but you don't dress sexy enough. So he gives me this catalog called International Mail. And I ordered these, like, faux leather tight pants and this, this fishnet kind of shirt. I mean, I was really working out at the time because I was single and I was looking pretty good. And I've got rings all over my fingers and all this. And so we're going to go to the Roxy. So that night, we met up with a couple of friends and we had dinner. And the other friend, another friend said to me, listen, he said, you've got to do me a favor. I've got to make this appearance at this party. It's an older gentleman, and he's a really nice guy, and he's helped me out a lot. He said, just a half hour. And I really didn't want to go. And I said, I'm really not dressed for that. He said, no, don't worry about it. We're only going to stay for a half hour. So we go to this party, and I'm there 5 minutes, and in walks Richard. And I looked at my friend, and I said, who's that? And he said, oh, and he's British. My friend, actually, I haven't seen him in a while. He moved back to England. He said, oh, that's Richard. And he said, I wonder, he should meet, So he introduced us, and I was so embarrassed, Cindy, because I was dressed like some kind of Chelsea bimbo, and which is totally me, because I was very Banana Republic, I was very conservative and all this. And in walks Richard, and Richard, he's very conservative, hi, how are you, and all this.
Very serious.
And I'm like melting all over the place. So anyway, I went back to Jason, my friend Jason. I didn't mention his name, and I said, he's not going to be interested in me. He probably thinks I'm an idiot. And he said, no, don't worry about it. So Richard actually sang a song at the party. Someone played the piano, and then I totally fell in love. And I went over to him, and I said to him, listen, I said, I'd like to, get together with you. And he said, so would I. So I gave him my number, thinking I'd never hear from him, and he did call me 2 days later. Which was a Monday, and we met on the Friday for our first date. We've been together for 15 years.
Wow.
That's how we met.
Oh, that's a cute story. I like that. I do. I like that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that begs the second question, because oftentimes I find that actors and actresses...
My version of the story. No, just kidding.
Oh, you can't go there. Okay, so do it. Tell us your version of the story.
No.
Start that
no,
it's
the same version.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
I would love to see what Victor looked like in that outfit. That is so funny. Oh my God, that's cute. Very cute. Okay, so talk to me about that, because musicians at times, even though Victor claims this, every musician, I believe, has just a wee tiny little bit of that, that it factor. That's what I call it, which is, they can be a little flaky sometimes. They can be a little challenging. And so I just wonder what the dynamic's like living together, with both of you being in the entertainment industry. Talk to us a little bit about what life is like that.
Well, Victor's a rare bird in that I think I'm more of the stereotypical kind of artist, musician type. But with Victor, we really don't have any issues. I think, we respect, our creativity, we respect our art, and we don't really have any problems. And actually, Victor really defers to what I do sometimes, but I also get involved with what he does as well. And so I'm constantly supporting him and giving him tips, and if I read anything about something that might apply to what he's doing, I support him in that. So we really don't have issues with that. We really don't.
Oh,
I mean, it's kind of it's kind of crazy to to say that. People may not believe it, but we really don't have those kinds of issues.
It's a rare breed.
So we support each other, and I'm sort of, I'm not your typical. I said I was, but in a way I'm not either. So, I've already been through that road of the obnoxious acting student kid, whatever. I already went through that whole period, so I'm more evolved now, basically.
If
I may say so myself.
He's not a prima donna. He's not a prima donna, and and being a writer, very often writers are accused anyway of being very temperamental and to themselves and in their own world. And I will admit that when I'm writing, I'm silent. I'm very silent, and I'm totally in that world that I'm creating. But I don't brood. I'm not a brooding creative writer. So I think that both of us, just to reiterate what Richard said, we're both kind of odd birds that way, in that we don't fit a lot of the stereotypical traits that a lot of creative folks have. I think that to some degree we all have them, because when you're, as I said, when Richard's singing or studying or doing his whatever he's doing, obviously he's in that world, and the same with me. But we can pop out of that world and go have dinner and just be a normal couple, at a moment's notice.
Okay.
I mean, I will say that, it's if you allow yourself to be self-indulgent or to be, kind of like prima donna-ish and crazy, then it will happen. But I don't, sometimes I may have those kinds of thoughts, but I don't allow myself to kind of express it, because I know that I have to put it in perspective, and it's not something that's valuable. So I don't want to make myself sort of like a total, Mr. Perfect.
I know.
You know what I mean? So that we do have that artistic sensibility.
So I think it's
and
a
that
fair
temperament.
estimate that yes, and Victor, I'm sure that you're not afraid of Richard like the rest of us, apparently, because the rest of us are intimidated, but I guess Victor's not.
I'm not afraid of him, and when I'm afraid of him, it's because I want to be, and it actually is fun to be afraid of him sometimes. No, really, I'm kidding around. I want to keep this PG. I want to keep this PG.
Yeah,
no,
thank
honestly,
you. That's right.
Richard, and that's what I was trying to say about Richard before when you said what's the uniqueness about him, is that, again, he's got, as everyone's hearing right now, he's got that very commanding voice, because it's his trained voice, and your first impression could be, wow, this guy's a serious guy. He's a serious dude. But he's really the opposite. I mean, he's just a softie, totally. It's just it's a fun dichotomy, actually.
Hey, don't blow my cover, okay?
Yeah.
See, I think here's the problem. I think I need to come back to New York and get drunk with him, or be around him for 24 hours, and then I won't be as afraid. It's okay, don't talk to me for the first 4 hours, and I'll be good.
That's a date.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two more relationship questions, and then we will move on, of course, to the business side of things, meaning what both of you do professionally, because people want to know about that. So the two relationship questions, and two which I feel are pertinent because you're friends of mine, first of which, both Richard and Victor have a very loving and kind and patient nature. So it begs me to ask two questions, the first of which being children, because you are not in your 60s and you are still younger. And so I ask myself the question, will they entertain the idea of having a family at some point?
Well, that's that's kind of a funny question, and I say it's funny because
ironic.
I always wanted children, and I have to say that my nephew has he's totally filled that need for me, in that I was so much a part of his life. But of course, I wanted children very much, and I have to say, and Richard could disagree, but in our earlier years, he was not so interested in that. And it's funny, we kind of flip-flopped, and I think he's more open to having children now than I am, and I guess maybe that's because I feel that even though, no, we're not in our 60s, I think that children are for younger people. I mean, my grandmother used to say, God knew what he was doing when he gave kids to the young. And there's something in that. You know, Cindy, you're a mom, and there's a lot of, it takes a lot, especially today. I see what goes into raising children. I've been involved. My nephew, by the way, he's 19. So I feel like I've raised him. You know, he's out of the house. But watching my sister raise him, and she's a single mom, by the way, and being a part of that, it's a lot. There's a lot of work involved, and I think that you have to be younger. And also, the thought of a child graduating college and having older parents. Now, again, I hope that, we don't get hate mail for that. I'm certainly not saying that anyone in their 50s or even 60s shouldn't adopt a child.
Right.
I think I'm just saying personally, I feel that I don't know that I would have the energy now to do that, or the proper energy, and I kind of feel fulfilled in having been a part of a kid's life already.
Okay. Richard, what are we thinking?
I think
really
it's sort of flip-flopping, but, I wasn't interested before. Now I'm sort of interested, but I can put things in perspective and say, okay, well, are we prepared? Are we ready to, be parents? And we're probably not at the moment. So, although I'm always, I'm always of the mind that whatever it is that you believe in, whatever you feel in your heart, you should do. So, just break the rules and do whatever it is that you have to do to accomplish, what you feel and what you want to do. So I don't look at barriers. I don't look at, you can't possibly do this because no one else is doing it, or because, what will people think? I've never been that way. I've always, it's something that if I feel it's something that's in our hearts that we want to do, then we should do it. So I don't fall into the category of looking at what will other people think, and is it, this is unacceptable at our age, and so but I also am a realist, and I can say, well, at the moment, are we prepared? We're not really. So, but I'm not giving up.
Sure.
So.
Good for you. Absolutely. Now, the last thing I saved, which is the best for last, of course, because on this show, I'm the boss, so I get to talk about whatever I want. And in this particular case, I, of course, am an avid supporter of this and have been for some time. And obviously, I know that you all had noticed, of course, the big news about marriage equality. So if either of you wish to say anything in terms of the relevance to this, in terms of, do you feel that our generation is coming to closer terms with not only acceptance, but an actual advocacy and saying, you know what, this is okay and everybody should be allowed to be married. And further, I guess I should ask you all if you're going to go and do some big ceremony and invite me and sing and all that good stuff. Marriage equality.
I'll jump in on the easier question, easier part of that question, which is, yes, absolutely, we will be getting married. We have a domestic partnership for a couple of years.
Right.
And we've been waiting for this, and we absolutely will be having a ceremony, and you will absolutely be invited. So we want to do it in a way where we can plan it. It's just like any other wedding. Right. It's something that you need to plan, and we're in no rush because we live together and we're really married.
Right.
Our hearts are married. Right. But yes, that's the easier part of the question. The other part, I could leave it to Richard because he's a little more outspoken than I am on these subject matters. But I can say I have one word. It's hallelujah.
There you go.
Hallelujah.
Okay, Richard.
Well, I'm over the moon that we've gotten equality, and I think it has been long overdue. It's just really a wonderful thing that's happened, and I think that this gives validation to us as citizens, as American citizens, as people, that we are equal to all. And I also believe that this is going to help the younger generation to feel to feel that they are, valuable and they do matter. And so I'm really just ecstatic that this has happened, and I think it's going to really help a lot of these young kids coming up that we do matter and that we do have rights, and that it's just to get out of my way, and who I am and what I believe in and who I love has nothing to do with you and doesn't affect you one iota. So, except to maybe make you more compassionate, and to make you more, more of a human, make you more humane, basically. So,
yes, I agree, 150%, definitely. And now, as happy as I am that they said they're getting married, they just broke my heart because they're my two favorite dates and they're marrying each other. How awkward is that? Okay, then. So much for that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what you do for a living professionally, because now I get to toot your horn a little bit and you get to toot your own horn. And this time around, we'll start with Richard and then we'll get to Victor thereafter. So I have a bunch of questions for you, Richard, relative to the things you've done professionally. First off, I'm not sure that people know this, but you are an actual singer of both American and Spanish songbooks, actually, which I didn't know myself. So talk to us a little bit about what that sort of experience is like in terms of, I've never honestly even heard of a songbook. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And how long have you been doing that? And further, can individuals pick up some of your work? And if they're not in New York City, is it all over the place? Can we get a hold of these things?
Well, yes, I do the American and Spanish songbook, and there actually is a Latin, I would say Latin songbook, because there's something called boleros, which is basically ballads that were primarily written by Mexican and Cuban composers. So that's something that there's some beautiful music that I don't have a CD out of the Spanish stuff per se, but I do have another CD that I recorded called "Who Can Say What Love Is," that has been out for several years now, that people can get on Amazon and CD Baby, etc. So so, and also, I'm a podcast, and so what I do is pick subjects, certain I guess categories, and I explore them and get into them and build shows around them. So, and of course, my latest happens to be on Frank Sinatra, and which is now playing at the Metropolitan Room. We have a show tomorrow, and then we have 2 more shows in late August, 27th or 28th at 7 p.m. at the same venue. And this is something that we want to take on the road, because people are endlessly fascinated by Frank Sinatra, and he's, recorded such beautiful music that's universal and really just speaks to a lot of people. So, and there's some wonderful songs that we are singing. So.
Well put. Look at that. He literally took every question I just had away from me just by talking all there. Just kidding. But you did lead into some interesting things. You went from the songbook to the CD. So who can say what love is? If you wouldn't mind, explain to your listening audience a bit about the type of music that's on there, meaning is it one specific genre? Do you do different version of different types of music on there? And what inspired you to do this particular CD?
Well, it was an eclectic mix, I hate to say that, but it's kind of there's some wonderful there's a bolero in there. There's another song I sing, a ballad that I sing in Spanish. There's 1 or 2 Sinatra tunes, swing tunes. There's actually a Ray Charles tune in there. So I really changed it up, and I was at that point, we didn't have marriage equality, so there are 2 songs that kind of reflect, my thoughts about marriage equality then, and so I'm happy to report that those songs have now been answered, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Yeah, so basically it was a show that I did called A Right to Love, which I did in the clubs. Again, another theme, another thing about love and, lost love and it's because it's always obviously the root of everything is love, right? Isn't it? So
right. Well, of course.
Yeah. So
I agree.
we did that show, and then out of that we decided to make a CD out of it. So
nice, very nice, actually. Now I know that outside of, because you started talking about the Sinatra show, which we'll get to last, but I know in the past you've done a few other different ones. It's You or No One. Tell me a little bit about that show, because that one was one that you did much earlier, correct? That was like years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I would say like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, 5, 7 years ago, I would say. Again, it was just basically, I'm a lover of the Great American Songbook, and I want to keep carrying that torch. But mixing it up in my own way, in my own, kicking it up a notch in terms of my generation and, just through my sensibilities and through my eyes and through my, what I was exposed to, growing up, like I do a Stevie Wonder tune. I do, I do some Sinatra stuff. I do some Broadway stuff because I have auditioned for Broadway. I haven't been on Broadway yet, but I do have a trained voice, and so I, can do the Broadway stuff as well. So I was able to just mix those things in there to express, where I was at that time, and so that's what I do. Basically, I like to create, use covers, of music, but just to kind of create a kind of feeling of expressing, where I'm at that moment. So,
right. I did want to forget to ask this question because I know that, in particular, one, as a matter of fact, I know that you have a few individuals musically that inspire you, two of which that I wanted to mention. And the reason I do that is because one of which, actually, you had done a previous show on, which is, of course, Billy Eckstine. The Billy Eckstine Project belongs in the key of B.
Oh, you did your homework, yes.
That's my job, darling. So I want you to tell individuals, it's a twofold question. Obviously, he's an inspiration to you for a reason. Obviously, of course, you actually did a project and or show on this. So obviously, there's some significance to this. So talk to us a little bit about what Billy meant to you and how it formulated into a show.
Yeah, Billy Eckstine was a great, one of my first vocal heroes, right up there with Sinatra. And there was not much in terms of visuals on Eckstine, but just the vocals were off the charts for me, growing up, and so he was really quite wonderful inspiration to me. And we sort of have similar voices in a way, so I was able to just kind of not mimic, but just kind of take on some of the material that he took on, and rather easily. But he broke a lot of barriers. He was an African-American artist. He was a contemporary of Sinatra's, and because of his status, the African-Americans at that time and their status in society, it just kind of made it a little difficult for him to just kind of cross over. But he accomplished so much given those unfortunate limitations at that time. And actually, one very interesting thing was that at one point, Sinatra was kind of on the skids and down and out, in terms of his career and everything. And Billy Eckstine actually was on his way up, and he actually sold more records than Sinatra around the time that Sinatra was down and out. So I thought that was a very interesting. That was a very interesting kind of story how they kind of intersected. So I thought that was interesting, and and he was a great musician, and he started the bebop era. He was one of the first ones to employ Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker, just a lot of these great musicians. He also discovered Sarah Vaughan in the early 40s, and so they were kind of muses. You know, he was
right.
his muse. So he was just fascinating. So those are the kind of shows I like to do. You know, just kind of give life to some of these performers that never quite got the exposure that they should have, or just kind of bring them back and let people see
right.
who they are, to be able to experience them. So, and the X Time was that for me. So, and he also sang some wonderful, wonderful songs. So, and he's part of our American, jazz history. So,
right,
which
definitely.
obviously jazz is definitely an American art form. It's uniquely American. So.
Oh, you betcha, without a doubt. Now, on the flip side, I wanted to talk about one of your other inspirations, of course, because I know that you had mentioned her, and I hope I don't butcher her last name, which is Julie Whitson, who you had met at the Eugene O'Neill Cabaret Symposium. And you spoke so lovely of her in meeting her and what she meant to you. So I would hope that you would share a little bit of that with the listening audience and let them know what impact she's left on you.
Yeah, Julie Wilson was really a professional, but a down-to-earth person. She was very, very supportive of me, as she was with many, many other young artists, and she had a great impact on me because she was one of the first people I saw that was this magical artist and performer, but yet she was also very real. She was, she was just this incredible life force, and so incredibly giving and loving, but also a great talent, and that made a big impression on me. That someone could be that wonderful on stage, and then just be kind of like down to earth and real, and very giving as an artist, and very, very supportive.
Beautiful.
So she made quite an impact that. That you could be able to be this star, but then you could also be down to earth and just approachable and giving and loving and very, very generous. So that's the impact she made on me. It's basically just be able to be a giving person, and we all have unique gifts, and we all have things to share, unique talents to share, and no one is above another person, and we're all in here. There's room for all of us, and that's what she taught me.
That's lovely. Absolutely. Now, I want to tell you folks something about Richard, in case you didn't know this, because we were talking about your previous shows, and just to cite, of course, you've also done Seizing the Night, Songs They Sang My Way, obviously, of course, the Billy Project we discussed, It's You or No One. And, of course, he's also done past performances in places such as Mama Rose's, Danny's Skylight Room Cabaret, and 88. So now it brings us full circle, of course, to the intimate Sinatra thing that you have. So I want to ask you a question because I read your reviews of the show, and I put this together, and this is a culmination of a few things that were said. So I just want to know if you concur with this statement or your impressions of this, which is, it's been said about Richard's performance that he is a charismatic vocalist with liquid gold high tones whose highly expressive facial gestures are grand. Does that about sum you up in a nutshell?
Of course. Every single word.
Narcissistic musician. I often wonder about that.
Hey,
because,
I'm Latino Mediterranean, so of course I'm gonna be expressive, and I mean,
of course.
They may see me as someone from Mars, some of these wasps, but hey.
Right. There you go. And I do, and I think that's that's highly complimentary, of course, because I have not been able to get out to see the show as of yet, and I've been reading the obvious rave reviews. To those of you that don't know as of yet, the name of the show, Very Good Years, The Intimate Sinatra. Obviously, it goes without saying that most people don't realize that Sinatra's body of work isn't limited to just the popular songs. Oftentimes, we turn on the radio and we hear, the top 10 or the top 50 that he ever did. So tell us what makes your New York Intimate Sinatra show so individualized. Why should people come and see this? What are they going to get out of your show that they haven't gotten out of something else?
Well, you know, we're not imitating him. I'm not imitating him. So the razzmatazz, you know, kind of Rat Pack thingy that is done on generally is not something that we're doing. We are focusing on his recording career retrospective between 1939 and 1968, and so we're covering the different eras of his career. So, and it's very unique that he's an artist that really was, you know, spanned every generation. And so we were having a lot of fun with picking songs from his early years, you know, with the Bobby Soxers as a teen idol. And, you know, he created the template for the teen idol. There was no template before that except for maybe Bing Crosby. But, you know, no one was interested in Bing Crosby on a sexual, you know, level, you know what I mean? So, So, you know, so that's basically what we're doing, and we're just really breaking it down, and we're focusing on his different and how his personal life affected his professional life. You know, there was a whole period in the early 50s where he really was down and out, and so we talk about that. And then we talk about the great highs with his the Capitol Records, which is many consider his greatest era of music. Such wonderful music he did with Nelson Riddle, his arranger, that really can't be beat. So and then we talk about him in the 60s, and we cover some stuff from the 60s, and how he just really spanned generations. And we just really want. I also, as an artist myself, I see what it takes to be a great success, and he had it in spades. He really believed that he would make it as a singer. He really believed. He really had the faith that he was being watched over, and he really had the determination to make things happen. He verbalized it. He said, you know, I'm going to be the greatest singer. You watch. You know, I'm going to be. You know, someone's watching over me. I've got to do this. I've got to do this now. So he was really, really determined to be a superstar, and he did. He became one.
You bet.
So.
You bet, without a doubt. And what's neat, and what I think is neat, and like I said, I haven't seen the show yet, but I do know that I find it interesting that between songs and such, you're doing that dialogue, and you're telling stories, and you're talking. There's dialogue with the audience. You know, oftentimes when we go to see a musician or a performer, you know, there's some hello, how are you, da-da-da-da, but it's nice that you're so engaging and that you're so entertaining, you know, in all senses of the word, not just with your singing, but that you actually entertain your audience, which I think is extremely impressive. Just my 2 cents.
But, you know, thank you. Yeah, because also, you know, such a love of audiences. That was the thing, too. So he really had a great reverence for his audience. Right. And so we wanted to be able to transmit that as well. So, without
a doubt, definitely. Okay, so I'm going to let you wrap.
Come on down.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll be pumping that, you know, just to remind everybody, 7 o'clock tomorrow night at the Metropolitan Room. But we'll be saying that about 7 more times before the show is over. Now, Victor's going to get mad at me if I don't start talking to him, because we have to talk about, like, his stuff. Otherwise, he's going to get really mad at me. So
I'm enjoying this conversation.
I'm comfortable with Richard, and he's not scaring me half as much as he used to. So good. Or maybe it's because I'm tempted to drink wine and get more comfortable. Okay, just saying.
There you go.
All right, we're going to talk about Victor now. So, hi again, Victor. I'm going to make you blush when I get done talking, because you'll see what I mean. Okay. So, to those of you that don't know about Victor, Victor does dual duty, of course, because obviously his passion lies very similar to mine, which is, of course, in writing. But he also obviously is a business owner as well. So we'll cover both sides of the fence. You as screenwriter / producer, and then on the other flip side of the fence, of course, your group in and of itself. But before we start all of that, what I wanted to ask you was, you yourself as a writer, tell me, because we've talked about Richard's inspirations, I can only ascertain that your aspirations, or inspirations rather, aren't just family relatives. Is there anybody from a professional standpoint, or just individuals out there that impress you to the highest magnitude, that have inspired you to be a better writer?
Wow. You know, I think that there's no one person. It's really a compilation of so many different genres of film that I've seen that have just totally blown me away throughout the years. But I have to say that if there's any one film that really inspired me and said to me, "Hey, you should be doing this," that would be The Godfather. And I know that almost before I made a statement about no stereotypes and mafioso and all that, that film. Yet I'm saying that I'm giving away that that's my favorite film. But that film, so I mean, I don't think there's maybe Goodfellas, which happens to be another one of my favorite films. But the films that people actually quote, there are lines in The Godfather that people quote, leave the gun, take the cannoli, stuff like that. But that film and what Puzo did, and that book, what Puzo did in the book, really said to me, and also his story. It took him. He was struggling. He had a big family, and the man was struggling, and he had this, this amazing talent that no one would see, and it was just, I feel that God was just saying, hold on, because you're going to have this amazing inspiration, this incredible revelation, and he put this story down, and then worked with Coppola on the screenplay, and just did something so incredibly beautiful that it impressed me as a kid, and it really spoke to me, and it said, hey, you're going to do this one day. So, but again, it's I have to say that it's really, I look at old films. I'm a big fan of the older, from basically more of the 40s. As corny as they weren't corny back then, but there's so much you can learn as a student of film by watching those stories, because they weren't afraid of dialogue. And I think that's, and that's a whole other show, talking about, where film is going today, and what makes, the hundreds of millions of dollars and why. But, these films were these were writers' films, and I still study them. I still watch them.
Aw, look at that. Now, I want to flip over before we get to the film side of things to talk a bit about your group, of course, obviously, because as I understand it, of course, you had been writing for a small ad agency prior to formulating your own agency. So tell the folks a little bit about how you went from going there to obviously formulating your group now. Okay.
The Food Emporium is, for folks who aren't on the East Coast, or I should really say who aren't in New York, the Food Emporium is a division of the A&P Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, the A&P supermarket. And I was hired as a junior copywriter for this new account that they had. And lucky me, it was about food, which is something that I was passionate about already, because as a writer, Cindy, I know you know that if you're not passionate about what you're writing about, it's going to be flat. So I was very fortunate to get this job, and what happened was, it's a very long story, but I'll try to encapsulate it. The folks that I was working with within the agency, they were offered the Food Emporium account, and they took it, and they took me with them as their copywriter. The gentleman there were two gentlemen. One of them passed away, and when he passed away, the other gentleman said, "Hey, I'd like you to be my partner. You really, But at that point, I was doing so much more than writing. I was really being an account guy, and then he retired 6 years ago, and I formed the Ribaudo group, and which was really kind of the same agency, partnered up with two folks, Bill Brady, who's a food photographer, and Rich Beyer, who's a web designer. And the three of us formed the Ribaudo group, and we were basically a branding and a marketing group, design also, that deals almost exclusively in the food and beverage industry. So we do everything from package design to photography and any kind of, marketing, a lot of content, video content. So that's how that writing, that one job kind of brought me into owning my own agency.
Oh, that's so exciting. And, of course, just to note, of course, some of your clients being A&P, Da Vinci, Driscoll Foods, Reese. I was curious to ask you if you deal with, or actually an even better question, because you said food and beverage. Obviously, nowadays, everybody and their uncle, and including myself, so I'm not going to lie about this one. One thing I've always wanted to do is have my own booze. I mean, who doesn't want to have their own booze? You know, like have your name, like the Skinny Girl Margaritas, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Explain to people who are out there and thinking about things like this, how advantageous, or should I say more tedious is it to get involved with the alcohol side of things? Because, you know, there's licensing and all sorts of FDA regulations, et cetera. So is it really that much of a marketable product these days, unless you're very well known or you have a lot to invest?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's first of all, the space is very competitive. And not to use the pun, but it's saturated.
Right.
It's, any beverage industry doesn't even have to be alcohol. And the beverage space right now is extremely, extremely competitive. Bottled waters, drinks, energy drinks, and booze is right in there with that. I think that, you know, a Ciroc is a good example of how if you get a celebrity name attached to something. I'm not saying that Ciroc is a bad drink, but it was relatively not really well known, and that's really the way to go. So I would say, again, you know, I'm a little more cautious than Richard is. You know, Rich is very much about, if you want to do something, do it. I'm more about research it a bit and know what you're getting into. If you want to do something like that, but certainly look into it. You know, certainly look into it. And make sure you create a brand. Yeah, make sure you create a brand, because the product could be good, but if you're not creating the buzz and the brand around it, it won't have personality. People won't pick it up.
Of course. Makes perfect sense. Thank you very much. See, we got a little education there. Thank you. Now, that's the business side of the man. So now let's talk about creative, Victor. So we're going to start off with one of my favorite films because, of course, I came to this nice little festival called Soho Film Festival because Kelsey actually was the one who invited me and said, come to these red carpet interviews. And thus the illustrious friendship started between the three of us. I myself have been able to see The Networker firsthand. Victor serves as both producer and writer of The Networker. Obviously, it's been to Hoboken Film Festival, to Soho Film Festival. It's now been accepted to Golden Bridge Festival, as I understand it, which is very exciting. So I want to ask a couple of different questions because, first of all, what I think is really neat, what most people don't know is, to those that are listening, in case you don't know, it's an independent film, obviously directed by the infamous John Gallagher, very big friend of the show. Absolutely can't say enough about that man. I would live and breathe with him if I could. Thank you very much. And the amazing Steve Stanulis, of course, lead actor, and his production company, certainly. So a couple questions relative to The Networker. First of all, it's an interesting dichotomy that you actually use your family home not only for rehearsals but for shooting. So I'm curious to ask, because that doesn't happen oftentimes, with the actual writer offering a home to actually do this sort of thing. So how did all of that come about?
Well, I mean, it was really one. I mean, again, it's an independent film, so obviously budget was a part of it. But also, when I wrote the family scene, again, you'll find that in most of what I write, there's always going to be a family element in it. If it's something that I'm writing, that it's a story that I'm coming up with. I mean, if it's obviously if I'm adapting a book, it's a different story. But the family that I created in this story was, again, very similar to what I know to be family life. And when I wrote the scenes that took place in that home, I was thinking of my mom's home. And so when the talent scout said, I'm not the talent scout, I'm sorry, the location manager said, hey, we have to find this, and that. And I said, I want you to take a look at my mom's house because it's really conducive to filming and it's really perfect. And he just walked in there and looked at me and said, oh, my God, this is perfect. And logistically, it made sense. And my parents, as my family is just, so supportive. They were, whatever you need to do it. And that's how we ended up there. And it was a lot of fun. I got to tell you, that was, to me, I think, some of almost everyone's favorite day of the whole, all the days that we were shooting. Because we had the fortune also of having my sister, who lives across the street, having her home for holding. And so we were able to spread out, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun and very authentic. We didn't have to dress it much.
Oh, well, right. And, of course, how surreal is it that you have all of these, like you're talking about, your own family and a lot of yourself, basically, put into the networker. So how surreal is that you watch these words come to life in the form of a movie? That has to be just an awe moment. It's a surreal experience for you. Oh, I imagine, definitely.
It's amazing.
Oh, and by the way, I'm never probably going to ever say this in my lifetime again, but I get a chance to because it's my show, so I can say it. I love you to death, but I hate you. Now, let me tell you why I'm saying I hate Victor. Get this, folks. 2, not 1, but 2 of the actors that I've idolized since I've been, young. He's, standing next to him. They're, in the family home with him. He's, hanging out with them. Sean Young, I finally got to meet at Soho. I'm so excited. But you've been next to Will. I haven't got to interview Will. I haven't got to meet Will. I have such a girl crush on Will. He scares me even more than Richard. I mean, I think I'd pass out in front of him. I'm like, you think I'm afraid of Richard? He'd be like, oh, my God. He's scary, right? I mean, look at him. He's scary.
I don't anyone. Because I think I just believe that everyone is good at that. It's some guy that he's got that look, and
right.
What I think what's so amazing about casting him in this role is that he was able. I mean, he actually, he fit the dad who's a very William Forsythe kind of character. That I don't want to give it away for folks, but that warmth and those beautiful scenes that we saw, 2 of them, which literally brought me to tears. I was there, every step of the way, watching. I really cried, especially with one of the scenes. He's an amazing actor. He's very intense.
Yes.
He's extremely professional and serious. But once he's out of, once it's done, he's very personable and very sweet. And to have him in my mom's bed. There was a scene where he was in my mom and my dad's bed.
Yeah, I know.
That was just so amazing, And as far as Sean Young, let me tell you, she is the sweetest thing. I'd say she's really great. Again, another talented actress, and she took that. She really got the character and gave that character so much life and so much humor and so much nuance. And it was amazing to watch her work, but it was also amazing just to see her kind of. She's like a mom, I mean,
I know
she's she's a very glamorous woman and everything, but she's like a mom. She was helping everyone and hanging out with people and sitting and talking, and she's just a sweetie.
She's
she
great.
Really is.
I love her. Oh my God, yes, I definitely love her. Now, I know that you had talked about this before, so you've told everybody the premise. Of course, Victor is the producer and writer of 7 Fishes, which you had started talking about earlier in the conversation. So I'm curious to ask, when do you formulate or capitalize in your mind, or conceptualize, I should say, completion of this and then actually getting going on producing it?
The seven Fishes, as far as 7 Fishes, Cindy?
Yeah.
Okay. 7 Fishes is complete. I mean, as complete as any script is. I mean, when a director when they get their hands on it, sometimes it changes a bit. It's always a living thing. I mean, I'm always rewriting, as actors or speaking the lines, but it's about as complete, I think, as any script could be. I've spent 3 years really perfecting it, so right now, as I said, it's kind of and again, I can't really can't talk too much about who is looking at it, but there are folks looking at it very seriously, It's a very special film, and I have to say that it really, with all due modesty, but it's a film that was totally inspired, and and you and I have talked about this, and whether folks talk about God or the universe or whatever it is that they believe in. I literally felt when I was writing this film, and I actually experience this when I'm writing anything, especially film, or TV. But this film in particular, I felt that God was dictating to me, and I was almost just sitting there, just typing out what the Spirit was saying to me. That's how this film came about. It was an amazing experience. I think we're close. I think we're close to getting financing, and then you'll know when that happens.
Cool. And then the other project we don't want to forget about talking about is, because I know that and I'm not sure what you can say about it, but of course you're the writer for Sex and the Shield, which is of course the Steve Staniels project once again. So if you can give a short summation of what that's about, and what are we looking at timeline-wise here? What stage are we at?
Sure. Sex and the Shield, I can talk about that. I mean, that's Sex and the Shield was really inspired or created by Steve Staniels, and it's loosely based on his life. He's a very interesting gentleman. I mean, he was a Chippendales dancer who became a cop, a good cop, and when I mean good cop, meaning he had a nice career, and then got into the world of security for the rich and famous. And it's a very interesting story, and so we together, and I say we, also Bill Grady and Rich Beyer, my partners, the four of us got together and said, you know what, this sounds like a really good series. We were thinking about a film. We said, this sounds more like a cable series, something like an Entourage. We came up with a story. I wrote the pilot, and it's now being looked at by someone who's interested. And timeline-wise, I mean, I think that, I'm hoping that in a few weeks we'll get a green light on actually filming the pilot and then shopping it around.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one, too. I can't wait.
Project. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's that?
And it's a little different because it allows me to explore a little bit more of a playful side, and a little bit more of the thinking more, a little more devious. Some of the characters are a little more devious, so I'm having fun with that.
Cool. Okay, so we only have 3 more things left to do because, oh my God, I could talk to you all forever. Doesn't it seem like this time just goes? It's amazing to me. It's like it just goes like that. Okay, folks, to those of you who have not got an opportunity to see the film or really don't know much about Victor's work, I must say this much. I would like to read to you what a reviewer has said about his movie, The Networker. And you should take your props for this because I think it really will give our listening audience a good sense of what the movie is about. So listen to this, folks. This is the review of The Networker. Recently, I was a proud participant of the New York-based Soho Film Festival. Although the majority of my time was slated for red carpet interviews, I was able to attend the premiere of 2 feature films. One of those films was The Networker, and now you're going to hear my review of the film and its cast and crew. Creative genius Victor contrived a tale of both the reality and rigors involved in the reinvention of oneself. He dishes up both a delightful drama and clever comedy, even sprinkling his screenplay with a dash of romantic role play. Donning the directorial cap is one of the elites of the independent industry, John Gallagher. The Networker is evidence of Gallagher's propensity to pull passion straight from the souls of all of his actors. As for casting, darling Donna McKenna whipped together an entourage of eclectic entertainers to successfully showcase this story. Regarding production, Steve Staniels is perfectly planted as one of the lead producers, yet signed on in a secondary role as the lead actor in the film. This dual duty was advantageous not only for Staniels, but even more so for the audiences who view this film. The premise behind The Networker circulates around the troubled, then eventual transforming of the main character, John Mangona. Mangona's father, having grown tired of John's juvenile antics, offers him 90 days to basically sink or swim as it relates to his employment at the family firm. Networking is inferred to him as a necessity for nurturing new business, so he embarks upon meeting and meshing with a number of networkers. We watch John navigate through enormous amounts of emotions and expend all his energy attempting to serve as savior to the family business. John's journey is filled with love, loss, and laughter, with the ultimate discovery being that proper prioritization of responsibilities reaps a fuller, more functional life. The networker hails a hurricane of heavy-hitting talent, two of which are this reviewer's personal favorites. William Forsythe's portrayal as John's father, Charles, reveals a softer side of the actor, allowing him to break free from his stereotypical scary or intentionally intense portrayals. Forsythe is a gem to gaze at on screen in this role, as his familiarity and fondness of the character seems genuine. Sean Young is cast as John's mother, Margie, and watching her on screen reminded me that true Hollywood types still exist. Young instills in her character a sense of class and charm, and in this case, left her audiences oftentimes chuckling at her creativity. Deborah Twist plays Nicole, John's co-worker and potential love interest. Twist's on-screen chemistry with Daniels' character is endearing and comes across as natural in nature. Further, her presence throughout the film commands her audience's attention and appreciation, as her portrayal of both a sweet, sincere girl and wounded woman is just brilliant. Jeremy Luke is cast as John's brother Peter and is both hilarious and hugely intricate to the success of the storyline, I should say. Luke is original and out of the ordinary in his acting style, and feel that he was perfect as the anal and adored other child. Philip Moon portrays David Finkelstein, one of the many John meets while networking. Moon is imaginative in his role, as frequently as facial gestures do the acting for him, not dissimilar to Richard, sorry, had to throw that in there, producing gratitude and giggles from the audience. He is the one male in the movie that's both annoying and amusing at the same time, which speaks volumes about his versatility as an actor. Lastly, we have our lead, Steve Stanilis, as John, the main character. He brings to his role an equal amount of sex appeal and sass, and he is clearly convincing as a lost man looking for meaning behind his own madness. Stanilis is a professional whose plentiful passion for his craft is obvious in each and every scene. To conclude, The Networker was filled with merriment and messages. Thus, you should venture to view this film because it will leave a smile on your soul and a magical memory on your mind. That is the work that Victor does. That's the work that Victor does. That is why I am so proud to know him. One of many, many things. But you've already read that and seen it and all the good stuff. So, before I forget, we have to do two more things. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
What do we have to do?
Okay. On the Victor side of things, I didn't want to forget to mention this. You have a personal Facebook page. You have an IMDb profile. You are on LinkedIn.
Yep.
The movie is networkermovie.com. Also, we have your blog. Are you currently doing the blogspot.com, which is on your group page, or should I not be talking about that?
Actually, I have not since I've been very busy writing other things, but we do plan on continuing with that. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And then, of course, the business, and just to let you people know, his last name, it's and it's spelled RIBAUDOU group.com. And, of course, I tried to click on sevenfishes.com, but it didn't take me anywhere. So is there an actual page or something set up for Seven Fishes yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
By the way, the last name is RIBAUDO.
I misspelled that. Oh, my God. Slap my hand. I'm a writer. I'm correcting it now.
That's okay.
Okay. Now, on the Richard side of things, Richard, before I forget for you have your personal Facebook page. You have your actual website, which is www.richard, and the last name is spelled MALAVET.com. You also have a LinkedIn profile. You have a Twitter, which is and that's R, same last name, MALAVET. And you can also be found on Spotify and Amazon and AllMusic.
Yeah.
Any other place we can find you.
And YouTube. And I put it up my YouTube page again. So there's a video there.
I don't want to forget that. YouTube. I also don't want to forget to remind everybody, tomorrow night is the show, Friday, 7 o'clock at the Metropolitan Room, called Very Good Years, The Intimate Sinatra. Prices range from $22.50 to $115. There will also be two other additional shows on August 27th and August 28th. Okay. So that's everything business-wise. There's only one other thing that's left to do. If you've ever listened to my show, and maybe you haven't yet, but there's only one thing I do at the end of my show, and that's where I get an opportunity to tell my guests what I think of them.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with
here
Richard. I'm starting with Richard. I know, right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, he's going to kick my ass when the show is done. No, I'll start with Richard. I'll end with Victor. But before I tell you what I think, I just have two more things to mention to both of you. Victor, so you know this, I've had conversations with Steve Stanulis and John Gallagher. My intention is not only that review that we read, we'd like to get it once you guys have done the film festival circuit to all the different periodicals and magazines, et cetera, so people can read about it. And further, I'm in talks to actually start a film festival here in my hometown, in which case, if I get that to happen, The Networker would be the first film shown there. Your film.
Oh, wow. Well, that
so I
is
thought
an
you should
honor.
know that. And on the Richard side of things, I have a proposal for you. Oh, boy. Now your boyfriend's going to kick my butt. Richard, I don't know if you know this, but very recently I was just approached not so long ago, and I finally got my arm twisted. So, for some reason, a director wants to do my life story into a mini documentary. And wouldn't you know, but we might need some music. And so I was just wondering if you would be the voice behind my story.
Of course.
Yay! Oh,
I'll be happy to be an honor to do that, yes.
Did you hear that? He didn't yell at me. He didn't, get all mad or anything. It's getting so much easier. All right, so now my final impressions. And the reason that I do this is because the listening audience doesn't know you nearly as well as I do. They get their impressions of you through the interview, but now they get to hear my personal impressions. And if I've done my job well enough, they will like you as much professionally and personally as I do. So these are my impressions of you, Richard, dear Richard. I won't lie, as I've repeated 17 times, you have a very commanding, very intimidating, and I think that's probably because you have a whole lot of love on the inside of your heart, but you just come across as very polished, very professional, very serious. But on the inside, I can feel all of that passion. I can feel all of that drive. One of the nicest parts about being surrounded around you is that you can be charming one moment and serious in the next moment. You're very diverse in mood, in action. I love watching your face move, as your audience does, because you can go from being from one extreme to another extreme. And that kind of diversity in a person and in a performer is something that's not 100% out there all of the time. That was not well put, but oh well, I'm getting tired. I also must have to say that I have listened to Richard's voice before. I've heard you sing as a performer, and you could probably lull me to sleep with your Sinatra. You're very impressive. Your voice is very unique to me and is very unique to your audience. Many of the people that listen to you recognize you as being in one pitch and in one tone, but what they don't realize is that you've mastered your craft to the point where you could walk into a room and pretty much sing anything you want at your leisure. I find you to be very engaging and very enchanting. The fact that you make someone that I love so very happy just makes me want to endear you even more. I feel blessed to know you. I feel blessed in your presence. And I hope that one day I can stand next to you and that I can say honestly and truthfully, there isn't one thing about you that scares me, and I embrace you completely for who you are. And kudos to you for a job well done on your Sinatra show. So those are my thoughts of you.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Okay, Victor, you're up.
Yes.
It's you.
Okay.
I have a hard time telling you what I think of you without crying, so I'm going to try to get through this very quickly. Out of the dynamic duo couple that I have on the show today, it's your heart from the moment that I met you that captured me most. It's your heart that makes you a wonderful writer, and it's your heart that makes you a wonderful person. What's very engaging about you is that you walk into a room and everyone wants to speak to you, not because you're good looking or not because you're professionally accomplished, but because you're you. The moment that you open your mouth, again, enchanting, engaging, it's something that you both parallel in that. You have cornered out the map on creating works of art every time you put your pen to a piece of paper. People are engaged. People are interested. You keep your audience captive by bringing a whole part of yourself onto a screen or into a room or onto a piece of paper, and that makes you even more endearing to me. I'm so blessed because every day I wake up in the morning, whether I talk to you or not, I know that you exist. I know that I will see your face again, and I know that I feel like I'm a better person because I've met you, and I feel even better whenever I'm around you. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that the both of you gave up 2 hours of your time just to spend with me, because the real talent on this phone is over there in New York City.
Oh, gosh.
So I'm not going to get any more upset than I am already, except to say
no.
This whole 2
Lovely.
hours was just me calling to say I love you. That pretty much was it, and to do my job.
Well, we love you.
Yes, we love you too. Very impressive.
We love you
Thank
very
you.
much. So much. Thank you so much for this. And you do your job beautifully.
You do your, yes, beautifully.
Thank you.
You're
Really?
You're a very
I'm disappointed.
talented woman.
No, not at all. Very, very impressed.
I did okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, you did great. Yes.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Now, just to let you...
And the love goes right back
Yes.
to you. You know that.
Thank
Yes.
you. Now, I don't want to forget to remind you all that...
You
if
put
give
the
it about
sin
an hour
in
or
Cindy.
so-
I don't know why I said that.
Oh, my God, listen to this. Woo, woo. Now, in about an hour, I'm going to send over a link to you guys, and that will be the actual link, which means it's downloaded. People can go back and listen to this interview anytime, all year round, any day of the week, you name it. They can listen to this entire thing. I would be very mad if you guys don't come back on my show again at another time. If you give me 10 minutes.
Would love to.
Victor,
yes.
I would love it if you could find 10 minutes to call me. In 10 minutes, if you could call me. I need 10 minutes of your personal time, if you don't mind. And yeah, I can't wait. I just can't wait to see you both again. And congratulations again, Richard. Good luck tomorrow. I hope everything goes very well. Yeah, and that's it, folks. You're good. You're done.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much,
Thank
my
you.
love.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Bye-bye.
sweetheart. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Am I lying? Are they just the most incredible individuals? I can't. I can't. It's pretty rare that this radio show host gets emotional or choked up, but I kind of figured these two would be the men to get me to do it. Congratulations to both Victor and to Richard. You're just amazing to me on many, many levels, and I'm very impressed, and I'm very proud of both of you. I want to reiterate one more time, Victor, Facebook page. Obviously, that's his personal page. He has an IMDb profile, the website for the movie, thenetworkermovie.com. He has a LinkedIn profile. I'll certainly keep you posted as it relates to when the actual Seven Fishes page goes up. And just so you know, his actual website for his business is it's THE, and then, of course, RIBAUDO group.com. And, of course, spelling of his last name for Facebook, Victor, RIBAUDO. And, of course, The Networker. If you type that in, you can find a Facebook page for that as well, along with links to John Gallagher, the director, Steve Stanulis, Sean Young, etc. On Richard's side of the fence, once again, he's got a personal Facebook page, which is Richard, last name Malavet. His website, www.richardmalavet.com. He is on LinkedIn. He has a Twitter handle, which is @R and then MALAVET. He can also be found on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, and AllMusic. And just to reiterate to New York City folks, tomorrow night, Very Good Years, The Intimate Sinatra, 7 o'clock at the Metropolitan Room. Prices start at $22.50, and once again, want to repeat, August 27th and August 28th, and God willing, he will take the show on the road. Once again, thanks so much to the both of you for taking your time, and, of course, for giving your presence in my life. Want to remind everybody one more time tomorrow, actress who is also in The Networker, amongst a million other things, along with having a beautiful singing voice, is actress Donna Ross. She'll be on the show at 3:30 Central Standard Time. And then 5 o'clock tomorrow, actress Deborah Unger, Unger, who actually is also a screenwriter amongst an acting professional, amongst a lot of other things. Last thing that I want to finish off with is just I want to ask for some good thoughts and for some prayers. For me, once again, obviously, I'm still going through a tough bit of a time here, and I kind of am still trying to work things out in my life. So certainly do keep me in your thoughts and prayers if you would. Thank you so much to everybody who listened in tonight to this mega show, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
What you doing? Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony. Stop! At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory. Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
What you doing? Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony. Stop! At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory. Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.